The show was brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is your number one source for the best deals on sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, and a whole lot more. Go to SeatGeek.com or download the SeatGeek app and use promo code BLUESEATS for $20 off your first purchase. That's promo code BLUESEATS only at SeatGeek, the official ticketing partner of From the Blue Seats, a New York Rangers podcast. Let there be live. What's going on, Rangers fans? My name is Jimmy Fanizzi, and this is From the Blue Seats, a New York Rangers podcast presented by SeatGeek. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at BlueSeats94 and use the hashtag BlueSeats to interact with us on any and all topics at hand. Also, make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube and subscribe on all audio platforms, and be sure to rate us 5 stars. It would mean the world to us. We've got another newcomer to the Hockey Podcast Network family. That's right, we're taking a break from the rivalry tour to talk about another Rangers podcast that has been added to the family. I couldn't be more grateful to have so many Rangers shows coming on the Hockey Podcast Network. It really is amazing to see. This time, I've got Chris from 30 on Broadway. Chris, welcome to the Hockey Podcast Network family, and thank you so much for hopping on. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, thanks. Doing good. Pretty excited to be part of the Hockey Podcast Network. It's awesome and ready to get rolling here.
Yeah, absolutely. The pleasure is mine to have you on. You're welcome back anytime because you're a Ranger guy, so that's what we do around here. But anyway, let's jump right into it. I want to before I get your thoughts on the Rangers from last season, how did you come up with the name for your show, 30 on Broadway? I know it's homage to Henrik Lundqvist, but other than that, how did you come up with that name?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It was 30 on Broadway. It was the Broadway blue shirts, kind of a play on nicknames, and our show was an homage to Hank. So that's pretty much how we put it together.
That's one of my idols right there. I worshipped Hank growing up. It's still not the same without him, but I'm glad to see him on MSG Networks as an analyst now. So before we get into your thoughts on last season, we did have some news drop last week as Sam Rosen has announced his retirement following the 24-25 season.
Yeah,
I kind of saw it coming, but I would have thought that he would have had at least 2 or 3 more years in the tank. But according to him, he said it's time. He wants to spend more time with his wife, his grandkids, his family. So I can respect where he's coming from, but Rangers hockey definitely will not be the same without him next season. I really hope the boys can finally win one for him. But just give me your overall thoughts on the Sam Rosen news and what your favorite memory is of him.
Sam is Rangers hockey to me. I've been a Rangers fan. I was 9, going on 9 years old when the Rangers won the Cup in '94. I grew up on Sam and JD. Still haven't replaced JD. Sam, it's he's one of a kind. He's one of a million. You're never going to replace him. Memories, there's so many. I mean, everybody always goes back to this one will last a lifetime, whether that's a curse or whatnot.
I mean, I think that's the most obvious one that everybody goes back to, considering it's been 30 years.
I'll give you a good one, and it's almost more of what he didn't do, and that was Bure on Richter, and he kind of the momentum.
Really?
The play of the moment. Just really simple, just made it simple, but it was just the buildup of the play and being able to watch it, and there was no additional noise, no additional anything to it. I think that's where Sam is so good in so many ways. He can give you the legendary calls. He can give you it's a power play goal. He can give it all to you, and then he can let the moment kind of live in its own. So I think that's one of the big ones for me. And I mean, there's so many. I mean, so many of the saved by Lundqvist calls. I mean, it's impossible to put a list together. You know, Nick and I tried to do this when Hank retired. We tried to say, you know, what were our top Hank moments, and we put together, you know, 10, and it was like, man, we could have 50 to 100, like easily. So it's, you know, how do you, you know, sum up 40 some odd years of broadcasting, and you just say there will never be another Sam Rosen. And you just hope, if it is Kenny Albert, who I think is the logical choice to move on, you hope it's him, and at least there will be some sort of familiarity, I guess. But you know, him going, that's a big part of my childhood and a big part of my Rangers fandom. So it's gonna be a huge hole for sure.
Yeah, for me, Sam is the only TV voice of the Rangers that I know personally. I was only 2 months old when they won the Cups, if it gives you a hint of how old I am, but I digress there. But no, seriously, you know, he's one of my broadcasting idols. You know, he's one of the reasons why I started this show and why I want to go into broadcasting, more specifically play-by-play. And just the amount of passion that he has for hockey and for the Rangers, it really shows every time he's on the mic. You know, you can tell he loves the game. He loves entertaining the fans, you know, and he is class personified. He's a Hall of Famer for a reason. He's one of the best to ever do it. I think my favorite memory personally, it's more recent, but I remember it vividly because I go back to the 22-23 playoffs, Game 7 against Pittsburgh, when Panarin scored that game winner in Game 7. Yeah. And I remember right after that moment happened, 2 of my friends got engaged. So it was a double win for me because the Rangers came back and won that series, and 2 of my friends are getting married. So that was a double whammy for me in a good way.
Yeah,
but that's the reason why I remember that moment so vividly, is because, you know, just his energy on the call in that playoff game, the last game on MSG of the season, and it ended on such a high note with Panarin doing what he does. It was just bone chilling. And the fact that it ended with 2 of my friends getting engaged again really just hit home more for me. So I do have Sam Rosen to thank a little bit for that too.
There you go.
But hockey will definitely miss Sam Rosen after he retires. And, you know, God bless him. He's 77, but yet he's still kicking some major ass broadcasting these games. But Sam, we wish you all the best. We can't wait to hear more this season. But anyway.
And it is great. I will say this, just not to jump in, but I will say it is great to get another full season.
Oh,
so
100%.
We get the full ride, you know. Like John Sterling, love John Sterling. I love all the, you know.
Yeah.
It's even fun with the missed calls. I mean, and Sam has his own, you know, Sam mispronouncing names or whatever, but you know, to be able to be their age and do what they do, I mean, it's incredible. But at least that's
where I was going to go next. I don't mean to cut you off. I apologize, but that's where I was going to go. That just shows you as well that they're humans. You know, they're allowed to make those mistakes. I mean, it happens.
Oh yeah. I don't know if I could do half the stuff that they're able to do when I'm up in that. Please.
I feel you. But, you know, everybody expects broadcasters to be perfect when in reality, that's not the case. You know, we're human. We make mistakes. You know, I make mistakes on my own show sometimes. I know a couple of my friends have made mistakes on their own show here, but we're all human. It happens. And Sam Rosen is definitely an example of that. And you know what? That's why we love him for it. But anyway, let's get into our Rangers here, because I was just doing an episode on the rivalry tour. I was covering the Devils and the Bruins the past couple of episodes. And I talked about how, you know, I wouldn't want to sign Igor to a long-term deal. I've talked about that a couple of times only because I don't want another Henrik Lundqvist situation all over again, in which he's carrying the team on his back, and yet there's no offensive support whatsoever. What do you think? Would you want to sign Igor to a long-term deal after this season? Yes or no?
I think it's important what you said. I think that's the critical aspect of it. It's not doing the same thing over again. Because for far too long, we saw with Hank that we just, you know, Hank carried teams that had no business going as far as they went, you know, dragging him through the mud, kicking and screaming into the playoffs and on.
Yes.
I think you do want to lock up Igor, but you want to have a long-term plan in place that allows you the flexibility to do all the other things, the ability to supplement and build around him. You don't want to have it where you just say, okay, we've got Hank and we'll work on project pieces. Like for instance, I am so glad Patrick Laine is in Montreal.
Yes,
I wanted nothing to do with that at all. So that to me is like good. That was a old tale as old as time Ranger nightmare waiting to happen. I think as long as we don't do that, and as long as we keep the pipeline coming and keep players going through, Igor's got more than enough years in the tank. I think we'll be fine. I just don't want to see them do what they did. Yeah, they cannot do what they did like they did with Hank at all.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I was kind of going to go next with the offseason moves. I mean, I know they didn't make any splashy moves, but, with the moves that they did make, I don't mind it. Sam Carrick, 3-year contract from the Oilers. They traded for Riley Smith from Pittsburgh for a couple of conditional picks. At the same time, while it would have been nice to have a veteran guy like Stamkos or Marcia, so I understand why Drury didn't do it, because you don't want to mortgage your future either. You got a bunch of good young prospects like Othman, Edstrom, who you'd love to see get more ice time. Guerin, who's a really promising goalie. You don't want to mortgage your future, but at the same time, you are trying to win right now. The window is still open. So with that being said, what grade would you give the Rangers offseason? Because I gave them an A-, because I understand why Chris Drury did what he did, but at the same time, the window is still open, so I would have liked to see a lot more of a veteran presence without trying to slow the team down a bit more. But what do you think?
Yeah, I was a bit ho-hum. I kind of looked at it as, okay. I liked the Riley Smith pickup. I wanted them to go and get Riley Smith a few years prior. Hopefully it's not another kind of one of those like, oh, too little, too late kind of thing. But I think Riley Smith can add a dynamic punch to the lineup in terms of depth, and especially depending on what's going on with Kakko this year and things of that nature. But I was a little bit more critical. I was kind of like B-, hovering around there, because you looked at the way the season, the playoffs ended and the way the season went down, and you're kind of hoping like, hey, we can't really go back to the well and just repeat the same thing over again.
Right.
And some of the moves kind of felt like, okay, we're doing the same thing. It remains to be seen. There's movement up and down the lineup. Would it have been nice to get Marchessault? I would have loved to get Marchessault. Marchessault is another one of those like former Ranger prospect players that didn't really pan out and took him a while. I mean, look at the amount of teams that he went to before he got to Vegas. And I mean, he was figuring it out in Florida, but he really came alive in Vegas. Would have been really nice to pick him up. And I think even kind of picking him up and then maybe even still grabbing Riley Smith would be a nice little combo with the experience and whatnot. But I know a lot of people were like, hey, go get Stamkos, go get this one, go get that one. It's every summer. I mean, every summer, every single player gets linked to the Rangers, whether it's Frank Saravalli or Rosen, any of those guys, linking up. The Rangers
Dan Rosen, Pierre LeBrun, those guys, they're all on top of it. But at the same time, can we pump the brakes a bit, please?
Yeah, and it's always the Rangers are in on this player. They're on it. I mean, the Laine thing, like I was just mentioning before, everybody's saying, "Oh, the Rangers are going to go in and grab Laine." Like, thank you. They did it, but I just, the off. It's almost remains to be seen for me.
Right.
I kind of want to see the way the lineup shakes out. I want to see, which one of the young guys makes an impact. You didn't mention, but I'm kind of, my radar is a little bit more on Berard.
Yes.
I'm really curious to see him. I think he's flying under the radar a little bit. But yeah, it's kind of I'm in the air right now. But I would say based on so far, I'm a B-.
Do you know the beautiful thing about being a sports fan? There's only 2 days the whole year without a game. 2! With so much happening and so much action, that makes just about every day game day at DraftKings Sportsbook. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. It really couldn't be any easier, any simpler. I am seeing, though, that you can bet the Florida Panthers to repeat as Stanley Cup champions at plus 900 for the 24-25 season, but that's just what I would bet on. What you would bet on is up to you. And if you want to know how simple it is, if you just place your first bet and bet $5, you get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Well, how do you do that? Just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use our code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Blue Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Deposit and eligibility restrictions apply. See terms and responsible gaming resources at sportsbook.draftkings.com/hockey terms. This show is brought to you by BetterHelp. Question: what are your self-care non-negotiables? Maybe you never skip leg day, or it could be something simple like drinking more water. Our schedules are packed nowadays, and it's a huge priority to take care of ourselves. Mental health is so important, and therapy is something you should never skip to make sure that your mental health is in check. It can help you set boundaries, develop positive coping skills, and become the best version of yourself. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's completely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suitable to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. Plus, you can switch therapists at any time for no extra cost. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp, because your mental health matters. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/THPN. That's a fair grade. I can't disagree with that. But you mentioned the players. I keep hearing a lot about the Jacob Trouba thing. We know what happened, this offseason with all the rumors with him being traded to Detroit for Patrick Kane. And by the way, again, thank God Patrick Kane is still in Detroit. Good for him. I want no part of him again, but that's beside the point. But I want your thoughts on the situation, because I've said my piece about it. I understand his hesitancy because of the hospital thing with his wife. But I also said, if you're a fan out there personally attacking him and his family, that's a big problem. You don't do that. You can say what you want about his on-ice play. I get it. He had an abysmal year last year. I'm not going to deny that. But even still, he's got a lot of family stuff to deal with right now with his wife and everything. It's clear he wants to stay, and I get it. He's the captain. I know he's got to be better. But what were your thoughts on what happened with Trouba?
I have said this, and I put it squarely bullseye on New York Post. I think the New York Post created a whole big firestorm out of this and snowballed a story bigger than they needed to. And this is nothing new. Nothing new here. Larry Brooks has been notorious for doing this. They did it earlier. They steamrolled Trouba with the whole injury nonsense, making it sound like they could have put Trouba on long-term injured reserve to free up cap space. Got me all in hysterics about it, and then come to find out, no, it was after the fact. There was nothing they could have done to free up cap room or do anything. So to me, the Post has kind of created Jacob Trouba as public enemy number one to the fans.
Yes.
Another part of it, the Rangers miscast him. He's not a defensive shutdown defenseman. He's an offensive defenseman. It's another one of those. We put a player, square peg into a round hole. We've put him into a kind of an impossible situation. I think he played much better than people want to give him credit for. Did he have an awful playoffs? Yes, he was brutal.
He was brutal. Even your thumb emoji agrees with you.
Yeah.
If you're not watching,
was I totally fine? Was I totally fine with sending him packing at the end of the season if they were able to do it the right way? yes, I think it was one of those better to move on and everything. But I think the Rangers, the players, people have to remember, the players unanimously named Trouba captain.
Yes,
The
they
players did. Nobody else in the room. Everybody was saying that they wanted Kreider. Everybody outside, and this is fine. Everybody was like, Kreider is the captain. You know, Zibanejad, Panarin, all these players. We didn't have a captain for how many years? And
like
then
5 years.
Unanimously, right? And unanimously, the players said Trouba. You know, I'll even go as far as to where people have said, "Oh, there's bad blood in the locker room." Well, Jacob Trouba was in wedding photos through Instagram over the offseason.
Thank you.
I just look at it there. Yeah, does he need to be better? Does it suck to have, you know, his contract probably on the third pairing for the defensive group? Sure.
Right.
I agree. But you know what? That's not his fault. At the end of the day, that's not his fault. That's Rangers management. And that's, you know, Gordon and company, obviously, from before.
Yes.
But I'm curious as well, because I think he's going to have a massive chip on his shoulder. And I kind of hope he does. I hope he comes in, and I hope the Trouba train is running wild this season.
Yes.
And we'll see how it goes.
I couldn't agree more. You know, he's one of my players to watch this year. You know, I just want to see how he responds to all this drama, and I think he's going to respond very well. I think he's going to have a much better season than people think, and I think the Trouba train's going to come on strong. But I also want your thoughts on another player that I have my eye on, and I mentioned it on a another episode that I did recently with another Rangers show. I mentioned Kaapo Kakko. He's another player I want to keep my eye on because, you know, I get why people are disappointed. You know, he's the number 2 overall pick. He hasn't shown it, but the man has been hurt. So I don't think it's really fair for me personally, in my opinion, to throw him under the bus like that. But at the same time, you know, I get the possibility of trying to move him for assets. Now, whether that would be during the trade deadline or after the season is over. But for me, this is a make or break year for Kakko. If he goes out there, and I'm not saying he's got to put up gaudy numbers, but say he has a 20-goal season, 25-goal season, something like that, they're probably going to give him a contract extension, which I would be okay with. You know, he went out there, he proved everybody wrong, give him like a 1-2 year extension, go out there and do it again. But if he goes out there and gets hurt again and produces the same exact numbers, then I would say, okay, maybe trade deadline comes, end of season comes along, maybe it should be time to package him in a trade somewhere and see how he does elsewhere. But what do you think about Kaapo Kakko?
It's you're 100% right. It's make or break for him this year. Like, this year is make or break. I think, you know, again, it's difficult to be a number 2 draft pick when you don't put up the offensive numbers. The defensive side of his game is terrific, but a number 2, you're not drafting that as a number 2 pick. Now, is that his fault? Really? No, it's not. But I think what we saw in the World Juniors from him leading up to the draft and all the excitement there, you haven't seen it. It hasn't translated to the NHL. So I think this year is absolutely critical for him. I wouldn't have been surprised if they tried to move him or moved him beforehand, but I think they've given him the, you know, show me contract, and he's got to do something. He's got to provide some kind of offensive spark on the third line or wherever he is in the lineup. It obviously doesn't work as the top pairing with Zibanejad and Kreider. There's just too much deferring, and I think that's part of what hurts him. He defers too much. But I also think the puck also dies on his stick a lot in the offensive zone. He has great possession. He has great ability to hold on to the puck and smother you. I think that was one of the great things with the Wenberg combo. They just absolutely choked the hell out of everybody. But you got to be able to put the puck in the net. And you got to be able to provide some kind of offensive spark. Your line can't just go out there and then every offensive ability just dies. So I think this is absolutely make or break.
Who is your player to watch for the 24-25 season? Who are you keeping your eye on the most?
Oh man, I would say probably him.
Kakko? Okay.
I think he's the critical one because he's right now going into the season. He's your biggest question mark.
Right.
I know a lot of people say like, yeah, they're looking at Trouba and whatnot, and I don't necessarily disagree there, but Kakko, it's kind of like 2 years and 3 years ago where it was, you know, where the question marks on, you know, Philip Hedl, the kid line, Hedl, Lafreniere, and Kakko. Now, you know, Lafreniere has, and this again, this will show that I sometimes have no idea what I'm talking about. Going into the preseason, Lafreniere, we on our show, Nick and I on ours, were absolutely roasting Lafreniere, saying, "Oh my God, like he's just dogging it." And look at the season he had. So it just goes to show you a large reason of why I pay barely any attention to the preseason was exactly that. And I'm going back to that this year. But I would say probably the two would be Kakko and Hedel. Hedel, injury-wise,
Hedel's a good one.
Yeah, and that's kind of critical in that center core because if there's any ability of making movements within the lineup or doing anything to break away from the same as last year, Hedel's got to be 100% healthy, which is a giant question mark. And then, Kakko for the obvious, like we said.
Yeah, Hedel's definitely a good one to watch out for. I understand, concussions are nothing to mess with, especially when it comes to the NHL. God bless him. I wish him the best, but I'm definitely keeping my eye on Hedel. I want to see him play a full, healthy season yet again for the Rangers. Let's go into last season. Obviously, making the conference final against the Florida Panthers, losing in 6 games. The one thing that really kind of bugged me, again, from literally talking about this team for a decade, is their lack of shooting. And especially when it comes to the power play, which, granted, was better than Carolina's power play, but even still, you keep seeing flashes of, they're passing the puck too much. They're not generating enough scoring chances. They have a wide open net on the left side or right side, and they either fan on it or the pass misses, quote unquote. But I just feel like something's got to give here. I get wanting to try to make the team a little bit faster and a lot more aggressive offensively, but I really don't think much has changed when it comes to that, and that's going to worry me come postseason time. I still think they're a playoff team this year, but what were your thoughts on last season?
Well, I think, you look at a team that won the President's Trophy, and they and there were a lot of question marks going into the season, notably like with Lafreniere. What were we going to get out of Lafreniere? And was he a bust and all of that? And he turned out to be, amazing. The Trocheck line was arguably the best line or one of the best lines in the NHL. I think the power play was largely terrific, and then it kind of just fell apart. And I think a lot of that was I put a lot towards kind of Zibanejad. I think Zibanejad really tried to force the puck, and like what you were saying, the extra pass, the extra play, instead of just driving the puck to the net, it was always, let's just make the perfect play. I don't agree with the Carolina concept, though. Carolina, to me, is an analytics, if you're an analytics person, you're going to hate me probably for saying this, but Carolina is literally just let's throw everything that we can and let's just see what sticks. They're kind of like the people, they're kind of like the guys out there that have, betting VIP discords. I always joke about these. They'll put their post, they'll post their wins on Twitter, but then you don't know that they post like 100 bets that day and 1 or 2 won. Well, yeah, you take 60, 70 shot attempts at net or more, you're going to get something out of it. And I think you see like where they kind of fall short year after year in the playoffs is that swallows you up. The style of play kind of chokes you out. So I don't think the Rangers need to go that extreme, but I think they just need to break things up. My thing is, and this would kind of a little bit be extreme, is breaking up Zibanejad and Kreider. I would be really interested.
I've been talking about that with one of my friends for the past few months, and I agree. At some point, if you're trying to shake things up, something's got to give because their connection seems to not be working recently.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I just think it's just too comfortable. I think it's just too comfortable, and it's always trying to, you could see it, you could see it on TV, you could see it at the Guard just trying to force the play, trying to force a pass, and it usually always is trying to force a pass to Kreider that's not there. Or instead of just taking the route where, you got the guy open, you don't get the puck to him because you're trying to make the extra fancy move. So that's one of the things that I would say. But overall, I'm not upset about the season. I can't be upset about a President's Trophy season.
Oh no, me neither.
Yeah, I mean, it was an exciting season. It was, franchise best. it's just it kind of the wheels fell off in the conference final because Florida just honestly was the team that if there was any team that was going to beat us, it was the Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we ran into them, and it was just kind of their turn to run for it.
I mean, yeah. Despite me picking the Rangers in 7 in that series,
I had them in 6.
Well, there you go. There you go. But we all knew Florida was the better team, regardless of how it went. They were the more complete, balanced team, and they showed. They won the Stanley Cup finally for the first time in franchise history, and again, good for them. They clearly deserve it. Now, with that being said, though, give me your expectations for the 24-25 season. Do you think they're going to win the Metro yet again, or do you think there will be a wild card team?
They should. I think they should. I don't think any other team in the Metro got any better than us, and I don't think Carolina's better than us.
Okay.
Really, it kind of all depends on what our top guys do. We can't just be a Trocheck, Panarin, Lafreniere 5-on-5 line. They've got to fix the 5-on-5 scoring. I think if they could fix the 5-on-5 scoring, and whether that's moving, any combination of Kreider or Zibanejad around, or maybe Riley Smith unlocks them on 5-on-5 or whatnot, I think they're going to be right back up there where they were last year.
Wow, I see.
If not, probably better. If not, I would say probably better.
Wow. Okay, that's kind of surprising to me. Because I'll have my full season prediction episode coming on before preseason starts, but me personally, I'm not sleeping on Carolina. I know they lost a lot of pieces, but they still have Svechnikov, they still have Aho, they still have Jordan Staal. I get their goaltending is a big question mark, but I know Rod Brindamore. He's a great coach, and I just think he's going to have those guys ready. He's a great head coach. So I'm not sleeping on Carolina. And as much as it pains me to say it, I think the Devils are going to be in that dogfight too. They acquired Brett Pesce. They got Brendan Dillon. Their defense got better. They got Markstrom. They upgraded in goalie. And, I'm not the biggest Sheldon Keefe fan, given his track record in the postseason with Toronto. But as much as it hurts me to say, I'm not sleeping on them either.
Yeah, you could. I think that's fair. I think that's completely fair. I just don't see the pieces where when I'm looking on paper, and I know paper doesn't mean anything once the games get played and once the puck drops. To me, can those guys stay healthy? Those guys have problems staying healthy. And if they go down, they're in trouble.
Yeah. No, listen, I agree. Health is going to be a major factor for every team. And, thankfully the Rangers do have the gift of health, knock on wood. So we'll see what happens there. But I do expect the Rangers to be a playoff team this year, but I'll give my full season prediction before preseason starts. But before we wrap things up for tonight, tell the people how they can find out more about your show and where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so we're everywhere 30 on Broadway, on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're getting rolling here. We had kind of summer series all kind of planned, and then summer is come and gone. So we've jumped into the Hockey Podcast Network. So we're going to be kind of getting things rolling here pretty soon, getting back into the swing of things. So you can catch us on everywhere there, the Hockey Podcast Network. I know we're up live on there now, all of our back catalog and whatnot. So social media wise, like I said, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, 30 on Broadway, very easy for all of them.
It really is amazing how fast summer has come and gone, but it makes me even more excited that hockey is almost here. Chris,
that is the one good thing.
I'm sorry?
That is the one good thing about all of it.
That is a fact. Chris, it was such a pleasure. Welcome once again to the Hockey Podcast Network family. We're happy to have you. And, hey, maybe we'll do it all again during the season. How's that?
There you go. Sounds good.
Hey, thank you again, my
Appreciate
man. He's Chris from 30 on Broadway. Go subscribe. I will leave a link down below in the description on YouTube and all audio platforms. That is going to do it for us here on From the Blue Seats. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to this content, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe on YouTube. Hit that bell so you're notified of every single episode. Also, drop a comment if you're watching on YouTube. Once again, letting us know what you think of the Rangers season. And please help us welcome our good friend Chris to the THPN family. Also, let us know what you think on all social media, Twitter and Instagram at BlueSeats94, and use hashtag BlueSeats. And one more reminder, we are sponsored by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is your number one source for the best deals on sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, and more. Go to SeatGeek.com or download the SeatGeek app and use promo code BlueSeats, all one word, BlueSeats, for $20 off your first purchase. Alongside Chris, my name is Jimmy. This is From the Blue Seats, a New York Rangers podcast. Go Blue Shirts, and we'll catch you next time. Peace!
There you go.